On today's podcast, we're diving into the topic of workplace well-being and the critical need and opportunity to create workplaces that bring out the best in people. And oh, by the way, the results typically follow. Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everybody, it's Jason and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today. Welcome back. So glad you are here. We are in Season 7, over 160 episodes, so many great episodes that keep piling up. So if you've been with us from the very beginning, welcome back. So glad this continues to contribute to your life and your work. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. So glad you're here. Hope you'll go back and listen to some of the old episodes, which are older in timeline, but still very relevant in terms of topic. So great interviews, great micropods about different subjects that I think will add value to your life and work. And my commitment and my purpose of this podcast is to meet you where you are and hopefully provide an opportunity in your day, in your week, in your month to step back, to think about how you're moving throughout the world, in your life, your work, and the culture that you're hoping to create with the people around you. So excited you're back with us today. Before we dive into today's episode, if you'll do me the quick favor, if you will rate the podcast 5 stars, of course, if you will leave an authentic review in your own words, those are the 2 major ways that the algorithms work so that people can find the podcast and the messages get shared more, deeply throughout the world. So if you'll leave, if you haven't subscribed, please do that, but also rate the podcast and leave an authentic review. And then, of course, if you are crazy and you want to share these episodes with your teammates or colleagues or peers, or just on social media, anything that resonates with you, that is always appreciated, and that's the way that it spreads. So thank you to everybody who does that. So a few podcasts ago, I shared Fast Company's 4 leadership trends for 2023. And I shared my initial reactions and observations to the list based on what I'm seeing and experiencing and research I'm doing related to kind of leadership trends in the world that we're living in today. And it got a good response and people were interested in the topics. And so on the next 4 episodes, I'm going to be doing some of these little micro pods. We're going to dive into each one of the 4 trends in more detail and provide some tips to address this leadership trend in your team or your organization. So, on today's podcast, we're diving into the topic of workplace well-being and the critical need and opportunity to create workplaces that bring out the best in people. And oh, by the way, the results typically follow. Before we dive into today's topic, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. If you haven't done so already, we hope you'll visit Amazon or Amplify or jasonvbarger.com to check out Breathing Oxygen, my new book that is all about breathing good oxygen into ourselves and mindsets that fuel ourselves and the teams and the organizations around us. Positive, healthy thinking is as essential to great leadership and building a winning culture as the air we breathe. Leading yourself and a team of people has never been more complicated than it is today. As a leader, every move you make is either breathing life into your organization or slowly killing it. The atmosphere can easily turn toxic with negativity, blame, and doubt poisoning the culture. Just like every being on the planet needs good air to breathe, every organization needs leadership that breathes life into its people to sustain the energy required to complete its mission. Breathing Oxygen focuses on 6 key leadership mindsets that breathe life into any team: clarity, inclusivity, mental agility, grit, rest, and ownership. Join us, read, and share Breathing Oxygen.
Available now from Amplify Books on Amazon and jasonvbarger.com.
So the 4 leadership trends for that Fast Company identified for this year that we'll focus on today, or at least over the next 4 episodes, is your workplace is on the hook for well-being, they say. It's time to focus on a new kind of safety. We'll talk about psychological safety. And don't just respect differences, design for them, and thinking about different learning styles and experiences. And then the 4th one is about we're all still in recovery. Now, on today's episode, again, we're going to just focus on the first one, and then over the next little series here, we'll dissect each one of those on the episodes coming up. And I'll add my own observations and kind of reflections along the way. So today we're focusing on workplace, your team, your culture, your organization. What Fast Company says is on the hook for well-being. And, in this year, in 2023, if we truly care about our employees, our team members, other humans in the world, which I have just done a recent podcast about the idea of organizational empathy and caring about what the people you care about. So if we truly care about our employees, our team members, other humans in the world, and our places of work, we need to recognize that our places of work need to continue to expand the vision for how we care for our people. I've been on the record for saying this for many years now, that from the very beginning of all the challenges, certainly that we've been facing, that it is our places of employment. I truly believe this. Our places of employment, our organizations, our leaders, our teams, the people where we spend such a significant amount of time in our lives, it's these places, these are the cultures that can have the biggest impact on our lives and perspective on contributing to the culture with the people around us. So what I mean by that is we spend so much time at our jobs, at work, with the people around us, that these are truly the places in the world that are going to help us learn how to work with people that are different than us. Help us to learn how we approach challenging obstacles and learn to navigate our way forward. Choose to think creatively and thrive for a mission greater than ourselves. It's our places of work that are going to help people, in my opinion, or have the opportunity to help people, that will magnify every other and amplify every other part of their life if we choose to think about it that way. So, not to mention, if you didn't catch this back in October of last year, the Surgeon General for the United States of America identified that toxic workplace cultures are having a terrible impact on people's physical and mental health. This was a statement made by and actually a red flag and a calling it a crisis. This is something that the Surgeon General addressed, that workplace cultures are on the radar for people's physical and mental health. This has been identified as a health concern for our country. So leaders and cultures need to be as proactive as ever with identifying, in my words, what are the toxic behaviors or structures that we are, quote unquote, you've heard me talk about culture shaping in this way. What are the things that we are allowing to linger? Those habits, those structures, those processes, those ways in which we operate that are counter to the culture that we actually want. What are those things that we're allowing to linger and kind of fester in our culture? And then the opposite of that is once we can identify those things that are lingering that we don't want, what is it that we need to be teaching differently to trigger a different positive chain reaction? I've worked with and watched many leaders stepping back to reflect on their proactive strategies to engage the minds of and hearts of their people, of their workforce. And how do they do that in meetings, in retreats, in all hands events, and also think about their policies on time off, sabbaticals, physical health support, mental health support, working environments, coaching and mentoring support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well-being is just a part of healthy cultures and leadership. And if there's any part of you right now that's listening to all this and saying, oh my gosh, I've got to do all this other stuff. Now I got to care and be so thoughtful, not only about just us doing the work, but caring for the, mental health and physical health and time off and all this and the working environments and the coaching and mentoring support for our people. Oh my gosh, how can I ever have time to do this? And what about just quote unquote getting the job done? If there's any part of you that narrative is coming up in your head, then I will invite you to remember that as engagement continues to drop, employee engagement is now at the lowest point that it has ever been in the time that it's ever been studied over the last 2 decades. It's at its lowest point. And yet we know that employees that are more highly engaged, that all the positive metrics go up. Performance, productivity, customer loyalty, retention of great employees, attraction of new employees, all of those metrics go up. And so no longer is well-being just an add-on or an extra. Now we have to have strategies that we understand that taking care of our people and creating in cultures and environments that bring out the best in them will also lead to higher performance. Not only is it the right thing to do, it will lead to higher performance. So some tips or some things to think about is that as you step back and you study these places that are navigating their way into this world where your workplace is on the hook for well-being, what are they doing? Well, the first thing they're doing is they're asking and listening. Ask your people and listen to what elements of workplace well-being are highest on their list. Again, rather than just assuming that we know what it is that people need or want, start with asking and trying to seek out if organizational empathy is caring about what the people you care about, as I talked about on a previous podcast, then what do they care about? Is it the physical environment that's bringing out the best or challenging to them? Is it their workload that's bringing out the best or actually stymieing them? Is it their teammate relations and the culture and collaborations that's bringing out the best in them or getting in the way, or that there's toxic tension that needs to be worked through? Is it their physical health? Is it their own mental health or personal development? The best places right now are asking and also listening and seeking ways to meet people where they are. Another and I hate that we're calling these trends, because I don't think they might be a trend right now, but really we're evolving into a place where this is just what healthy teams and leaders and organizations, the way they think, is if we can care about our people, the productivity and everything will follow. And oh, by the way, it's right to do that just because we want to care for people, but any type of that thinking that goes back to we've got to run a business. Well, the business will be better and more sustainable into the future. And so these places that are thriving and or navigating their way through all of this, they are creating a sense of belonging. Not only are they asking and listening, but they are actively creating a sense of belonging. Research shows us that people want to feel like they are a part of something. When they feel like they are seen and a part of something, they are more likely to feel well and experience a sense of community. So we know this. If we create a sense of belonging and people feel this way, when they feel this way, they feel seen, they feel valued, they feel appreciated, they feel like they're part of something. It raises that experience and sense of community, and it makes them want to be a part of that culture, and the culture becomes more meaningful to them. And the last tip that I'll share is that we need to not only ask and listen and create a sense of belonging, but we need to talk and act. Talk about well-being, but don't just talk about it. We need to talk about it because we need to make sure that it's out in the ethos, that it's a part of everything that we do, that it is important to us, that we honor it. But we can't then just talk about it. We need to show our people by the way that our leaders model and practice their own well-being, that they can look around and see that these are living, breathing examples of people who believe this and model and practice this themselves. We need to show them with actions by the policies and attributes of well-being that we choose to honor as a leader, as a team, as an organization. We need to show them with resources and actions that back up your words and our words. And then my own last observation for today is what I'll say, then this is a blanket statement for all the topics that we're talking about as a part of this series, is if you didn't think developing leaders and culture was important before 2020 and all the stuff in the world with the pandemic and everything else kicked in, you now do, or you should. Simply put, do you have a strategy for how you're developing the mindset, the leadership, the culture, clarity around mission, vision, values, and that culture of caring for people? Do you have a strategy for how you're doing that, or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping your people and culture develop in the ways you want? We need to design, connect, and lead our way into that newly created future that we want. So I hope today's episode got you thinking in some new ways. If a deeper dive into any of these topics is interesting to you, please reach out to us at info@jasonvbarger.com and let us know. We'll continue to design content to help meet you where you are. Lastly, I hope you go back and listen to a number of these past episodes and find topics that add value to you. Cheers to the path ahead of us in the year ahead, and remember that the future of leadership is you, is me, is us. We need to get clear on the temperature we hope to set, and then be courageous and committed to breathing oxygen into the mindsets and actions that will sustain us on our path forward. Step back. Remember, be a thermostat and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.